How's it going, everyone? Kapinarmic here. It's the holiday season, so it's only fitting that we have a holiday video, right? So here I am with an episode recap. You like that title? It's clever. It took me a whole 10 seconds to think of it. And just a disclaimer, this is the first time that I'm basically doing an entire video, for the most part, unscripted. All I have were a few points that I've written down, and most of this is going to be coming from the top of my head, so apologize if this isn't up to par, quote-unquote, with my other videos. We're going to be looking over a regular show episode that premiered recently, Merry Christmas Mordecai, Season 6, Episode 10, and obviously it is a Christmas episode. It's not a double-length episode, though. It was, actually paired up with another 11-minute Christmas-themed episode called White Elephant Gift Exchange that dealt with the main gang trying to get revenge on Muscle Man because he always messes up all of their White Elephant Gift Exchanges every year at Christmas. But we're not going to talk about that episode. We're here to talk about Merry Christmas Mordecai. This is an episode review, but I only think it's safe to still give a spoiler warning. This video is going to have some pretty major spoilers to the episode, and I highly suggest if you haven't seen this yet that you do watch it. But if you don't care, well then, or if you've seen it already, I hope you enjoy this overview. So a few of you might remember a few months ago when I did a video called Cap Talks about CJ and Thomas, where I basically talked about how the crew of regular show successfully was able to kill off a character and, bring back a character that is now part of the main cast, and also just flat out introduce a new character, that new character being Thomas. I also need to do a video about that because some stuff has happened with Thomas that deserves an update to that video. But anyways, I was originally gonna make a video after an episode came a few episodes before this, which was called Eileen Flat Screen, and spoilers to the end of that episode as well. At the very end of the episode, it is revealed that Margaret is back in town. Like, the last lines of the episodes are like, it's great to be back, and then the episode just ends. So I was like, oh man. And all of a sudden I kept getting these comments on the Cap Talks about CJ and Thomas, telling me all about the Thomas episode and Eileen Flat Screen, and I'm like, okay, I guess I gotta do an update video on this. But I'm glad I didn't, because now this episode came, so if I did a video on Eileen Flat Screen a while back, that would now be obsolete. And this video will probably be obsolete within a week. But I'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's get on with reviewing the actual episode. So the plot's like this. Eileen is having a Christmas sweater party, and, everybody you'd think would be invited is invited. Mordecai's invited, Rigby's invited, and CJ's invited. Mordecai's like, this will be the first Christmas CJ and I are together. That's where things start to go a little bit off, because Eileen is like, there's a few things I need to tell you. One of those things is that Margaret is going to be at that same party because, she's home for the holidays, which makes sense. And Mordecai's like, oh no, what am I gonna do if I'm there with CJ and Margaret's there? Everything's gonna be all super awkward and weird. So the first half of this episode is, Mordecai being all paranoid and weird, wondering what's gonna happen if everything's just gonna flop and go bad. And basically while he's worrying, Benson comes in with a package saying, hey, I need this delivered at the post office. And Rigby can't do it because he needs to wrap a present for Eileen, something I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So Benson has Mordecai do it. Mordecai doesn't want to do it because he's like, I might run into Margaret. And Rigby's like, what are the chances of that happening? And, sure enough, he runs into Margaret at the post office. And Margaret's trying to be cool about the whole situation, and Mordecai's just acting really, really weird. There's even at the post office where she goes in for a friendly hug, and then Mordecai kind of like maneuvers to the point where it becomes a handshake. So he's really making things awkward. And basically, to get out of the situation, he fakes a call from Benson saying, what? You need me to deliver this package at the post office on the other side of town? And then he runs away. And soon after, Rigby gives him a really good, down-to-earth pep talk. And this is one of the main things I really like about this episode. A lot of the times, Rigby is, all carefree and lazy and a burden on people at times, but it's really cool, those rare moments where you see his character, kind of change, and he's being like a genuine bro to Mordecai. You know, he's done it in a few episodes. First one coming to mind being Steak Amadeus, and he's like, you know, I respect you trying to do this thing with Margaret in the Steak Amadeus episode, not this episode. So when Rigby is like really genuine, like, hey man, I'm gonna set you straight, or hey man, this is cool, and stuff like that. It's really cool to see Rigby in that mindset at times. After that down-to-earth discussion that Rigby has with Mordecai, it cuts to the Christmas party. You know, everything seems to be going alright for a whole 5 seconds, and Rigby gives Eileen her present, which turns out to be this mistletoe disco ball, which plays a part later in the episode. And even if it didn't play a major part later in the episode, I still really think that scene would have been necessary, because it further shows the change in relationship of Rigby and Eileen. Because if you remember back to like season 1 of regular show Rigby, he couldn't stand Eileen. He found Eileen to be quite annoying. And just seeing that character development throughout the seasons to the point where they are pretty dang close now, it's actually really cool to see, and that scene there kind of furthers that fact. So everything's going good, like I said, for a whole 5 seconds, and then CJ runs into Mordecai, and then Margaret comes in not too long after, and they meet each other. They don't seem to recognize each other at first, but because Mordecai's acting all weird and not thinking straight, he's all like, yeah, you all met once, back when I started dating her, and I went back to you, and I was stupid, and all that stuff, and he just makes the situation super awkward. The two try to play it off, you know, like, oh, yeah, that. Mordecai is kind of, you know, just kicking himself in the face right now. Soon after, Margaret goes off screen to do whatever. I don't even remember. And CJ's all like, you know, you seem to be acting really weird. You know, what's going on? And the episode actually did something that surprised me, and they actually made Mordecai just straightforward say, you know, it's been a long time since I've seen Margaret, and now that she's back, it's just really awkward for me, and I was afraid that things would be weird and I would give the wrong impression and you would think that I still had feelings for her. Like, they play it really straightforward, which is something I honestly didn't expect. I honestly expected Mordecai to be all like, fine, I'm fine, you know, I'm not acting weird, you know, like a lot of cartoons do in situations similar to that. So I'm really glad and pretty impressed that they, you know, play that scene straightforward. So Mordecai's all like, you know, I didn't want to give the wrong impression. I didn't want you to think that, you know, I still had feelings for her. And she's like, well, do you? And Mordecai's like, no, you're the person who matters to me now. You know, I'm over her. And she's all like, well, you know, that's all that matters. That's all I needed to hear. And obviously, that's not the end of the episode, because that would be a horrible episode if it just ended there. We gotta dig deeper, we gotta get more intense, and Mordecai feels a little bit better, but still, naturally, you don't just snap back to your normal mentality when something like that happens. So he's still a little bit tense, he's still a little bit off, so eventually, it's I believe, a slow song starts playing at the party, and, you know, it's a mistletoe disco ball. So then all the couples start kissing and making out. You know, a Muscle Man does this funny bit, and he makes out with Starla, and they have the Santa hat, and they pull it over both of their heads, and they just start doing some extreme making out. And there's also this really cool scene where Mordecai eggs Rigby on. He's all like, hey Eileen, isn't that a mistletoe in your hair? And she's all like, yeah. And then Mordecai's like, Rigby, you know what that means? And he's all like, what? And he's like, you gotta kiss her or whatever. And he's like, well, it's not like a rule or anything. And he's like, come on. And then Rigby kisses Eileen on the cheek, which is also a pretty cool scene. Again, furthering that relationship status. It feels weird talking about relationship statuses. I'm not Facebook. I don't even have a Facebook account. I haven't used Facebook since 2010. But anyway, right before all this happens, for plot convenience sake, CJ has to go use the bathroom. And, you know, while she's in the bathroom, all this stuff with the mistletoe is happening. And while all this is happening, Mordecai happens to run into Margaret. And again, he starts acting all crazy again, and he's trying to get away from Margaret. And in doing so causes the disco mistletoe ball to fall down and crash into this, like, punch bowl thing. So now it's reflecting Margaret everywhere, and this is where the irregular part kicks in. You know, there are these Margarets everywhere, and Mordecai is just surrounded by Margarets, and he's all like, and Margaret's like, you know, dude, what is going on? Because you were acting super, super weird. And Mordecai says somewhat of the same thing. He said to CJ, you know, you were gone for a long time, and now I'm suddenly seeing you again, and it's weird, but I'm moving on from you now, and CJ makes me happy, and I'm sorry, but, you know, I'm over you now. And Margaret's all like, and Margaret's really cool about the whole thing. I mean, she was never trying to hook back up with Mordecai. She even says, I didn't expect you to wait for me. The scene is actually played out really nicely, and both of them come to agreeing terms, and Margaret's all like, you know, dude, I totally understand, but we still had good times together. You know, can't you remember the good times we had, so you don't have to keep trying to ignore me and be awkward around me, because, you know, regardless, we still had great times together. And Mordecai's like, you know what, you're right. And it seems like everything's a-okay, but they're still pretty much the only ones in the room, and they start having flashbacks to previous episodes where significant moments in their relationship occurred. And once it comes out of those flashbacks, because you as an audience are seeing the flashbacks, once it comes out of those flashbacks, you see Mordecai and Margaret kissing, and of course CJ walks in, and she understandably is very upset, and she basically runs out of Eileen's house and drives away. She doesn't even, you know, say anything, which is understandable. She just says, you know, Mordecai, because she can't believe what she's seeing, and then she runs off and drives away, and Mordecai's all like, oh shoot, because, you know, in the heat of the moment he wasn't thinking, he let his emotions get the better of him, and he's trying to stop CJ. And he's like, CJ, wait, but she drives off, and he's like looking for his phone. He's like, where's my phone? I gotta call her. And he's looking for his phone, and while looking for his phone, he comes across a spare room in Eileen's house. And there are all these boxes in there, and one of them is marked, you know, Margaret's stuff, Margaret's something stuff. And Mordecai's like, what are all these boxes doing here? And Eileen comes in, because all throughout the episode, there's this thing that Eileen is trying to tell Mordecai and Rigby since the beginning of the episode. She's like, I have 3 things to tell you guys. And she said the first 2, 1 being, I'm having a Christmas sweater party, and 2, Margaret's going to be there. But she was always cut off when she was trying to say the 3rd thing, and it turns out, it's revealed at the end of the episode that the 3rd thing is Margaret is going to be moving in with Eileen, which is a huge stinger. And basically the episode just kind of ends off right there, like with everything up in turmoil. And just to let you know, I'm recording this mere hours after the episode aired. It aired, I believe, maybe 2.5 hours ago, so obviously another episode is going to come up eventually that continues this, maybe even recently, because on the regular show wiki I read that there are 3 Christmas episodes in season 6. I don't know if that is a typo or if it is indeed true. I guess I'll find out within the next couple of weeks, and if there is another Christmas episode that actually continues this, then I suppose I'll do another episode recap on that. So first of all, I want to say, back when I was doing the Thomas and CJ video, and I was talking about all that stuff, I had a feeling that something like this was going to happen. Not to this degree, however. I didn't expect Regular Show to push this far into the topic, but I felt like, you know something is going to happen, because yes, Margaret is gone, but she's not in college forever. Either she's going to finish college or she's going to come back to visit or something like that, and something is going to happen between Margaret and CJ. So something was gonna happen sooner or later. I just didn't expect it to be this extreme, let alone in a Christmas episode. So I was right and I was wrong at the same time. I didn't state it in the video because, well, I don't know, maybe I thought I would jinx it, even though this episode was made maybe up to a year before I made this video, so whatever. Now, this episode as a whole, I have two main emotions toward this episode. Part of me really loves it and part of me really hates it, and it's weird because the hate part is an emotional type of hate. I mean, well, when I say feelings toward this episode, obviously feelings imply emotion, but what I mean is the reason why I quote hate this episode unquote is because I enjoyed season 5 of Regular Show. I enjoyed seeing Mordecai and CJ together. I felt like CJ as a whole was a much stronger, more likable, more interesting, more enjoyable character than Margaret. So when they brought her back, I was really excited and I was like, whoa, I can't believe they're going through with this, because way back in season 3 when CJ was introduced for the first time, I was always like, I really hope they bring CJ back for an episode or something like that, and then they surprised me and they bring her back as a recurring character, so that was really, really awesome. So now this comes in, and obviously turmoil has ensued, and the hate comes in because I see that there is danger of CJ leaving or becoming some sort of an antagonist or something like that. I'm sure the questions that I have now will be answered like within a week from now or a month if they go on winter hiatus. I don't know, but as of this moment in time right now, it's like, it's really weird to me personally to see this distance, this negative force between CJ and Mordecai, because I really enjoyed the, pardon my shipping language, the chemistry they had together. But in a way, that presumable hate also makes me really like this episode. First of all, because the way that I'm feeling the hate toward this episode proves that Regular Show has done a good job over the seasons in making me, actually care about the characters on the show. They're not just throwaway characters like, say, a show like Family Guy or something. They've made it so I can actually care for these characters, and when junk happens to them, I feel that junk with them. That sounded totally weird, but you understand what I'm saying. So the hate I have turns into love on an analytical level, and also I really want to give Regular Show props, because in these later seasons, they have been doing episodes that you wouldn't necessarily see in a cartoon like this. Episodes like Stake Me Amadeus, which, basically killed off a character. Laundry Woes, which dealt with, Mordecai getting over his feelings with Margaret. I've never seen an episode of any cartoon, really, that has delved into a topic like that and handled it like really straightforward, then handled it really well. Mordecai's like, I gotta get this word into Margaret, and eventually he realizes it's like, this is a mistake, I should just move on with my life, It's like stuff like that, and also Real Date, which basically replaced Margaret with CJ, and then Maxin' and Relaxin', which dealt with, respecting and loving your parents no matter, how they might embarrass you and junk like that. And it's stuff like that that really makes me want to give props to Regular Show when they do stuff like that and they play it straightforward, like not necessarily like super serious, but they play it straightforward, like, hey, there's a point in this episode and we want to make sure you get this point. And then and this episode adds to that list where, you know, it deals with another topic that you really don't see often that's played straight. You know, Mordecai, his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, you know, this whole kerfuffle, him kissing his ex-girlfriend, and, you know, this whole big thicket of madness. You don't see stuff like that in cartoons like this, really. So I just really want to give Regular Show props. I've said that like 3 times now. But really, it's really interesting to see plots like this and see character development like this. It all just really makes me like the show even more. So really, overall, I really like this episode. There's a biased, emotional part of me that doesn't like it, but that part of me that doesn't like it makes me love the episode even more, because I'm just astounded that they went this route and they just had the guts to do something like this. And while there's a part inside of me that really, you know, doesn't want CJ to like go away or Mordecai to go all bummed out again, I really do love this episode mainly because of how well it's handled and just the plot itself, let alone making it a Christmas episode. I think that really adds a lot more impact because, you know, Christmas, the holidays, just December in general is considered, if you look past obviously the consumer related stuff, it's supposed to be a nice, heartwarming time at the end of the year where, you know, you're nice and happy and joyful. And when stuff like this happens at a time that's supposed to be all happy and joyful and merry, that just drills it in even harder, because they could have made this anything, really. This didn't have to be a Christmas episode. They chose to make this a Christmas episode. Even if CN came in and said, hey, we want another Christmas episode this season, it's like, hey, let's bring Margaret back in this episode. You know what you understand what I'm saying? They chose to make this episode for Christmas because it just drives in the emotion like 10 times as much. If it was a regular episode that came out in like September or whatever, you would feel the emotion, but it wouldn't be as intense because it's just happening on a regular day. You know, stuff like this happens on regular days. So when it happens in a special occasion, a special time, everything intensifies by like tenfold. That's another thing that I like about this episode, apparently, that I realized while talking about this. That wasn't even a point on the list. That's just something that I realized just now. So, just to recap, it was a Christmas episode. I really liked the route that they went down. I really liked the straightforwardness of it. I really liked seeing Rigby being a genuine bro to Mordecai. That's always really cool to see. I like the relationship between Rigby and Eileen getting a bit more close. I like the misunderstanding that the episode ends off with. I like the stinger that the episode ends off with. You know, Margaret is my new roommate, says Eileen. And it's really weird because I'm a person who really cannot stand shows that deal with misunderstanding plots. And I think partially the reason why I like this and I'm okay with this is because in a way it's not a misunderstanding. Because with the thing that really ticks me off about misunderstanding plots is where main character of the episode does something and the audience knows what really happens, but another character that sees it doesn't know what happened, so the whole episode is just this cringeworthy mess of you seeing this character become an antagonist to somebody who didn't do anything wrong. And when shows have plots like that, it just really it's cringeworthy, and I really don't like plots like that. But the reason I'm okay with it here, like I said, is because it's not a misunderstanding, because it very well may be that Mordecai still does have feelings for Margaret somewhat, because, you know, she just up and left to go to college, and obviously feelings die hard, and in the heat of the moment there was just, you know, lips touching and saliva exchanging. they're not thinking, and then all of a sudden, oh shoot, I just realized what I'm doing. So I feel like that's why I'm not so cynical against that happening, because it's understandable. And I suppose all we could do now is wait for the next episode, or the episode after that, or whatever, that further elaborates on the regular show lore, how this whole story arc is gonna form itself and resolve itself if it does get fully resolved. I wouldn't be surprised if regular show actually took this in another way that I am not expecting at all. And just overall, I really enjoyed this episode, and I thought it was a really good episode. I want to say that it is one of my favorite episodes, which is weird to say because of the emotions it made me feel, but also because of the emotions it made me feel. So I really think I can honestly say it is one of my favorite episodes of regular show. And on a little side note, we're gonna delve into Adventure Time a bit right now. If you are a watcher of Adventure Time, you might recall that there is an episode in season 5, I believe, called Frost and Fire, I think. It's the episode where Finn basically gets a hard-on for seeing Flame Princess and Ice King fight each other, and he basically writes letters to each of them with the other's signature on it, saying insults about each other so that they will fight, basically so he could have a good old time. And Flame Princess finds out about this, and understandably she gets really upset, and that episode basically marks the end of the Finn Flame Princess relationship. And while I do enjoy the earlier parts of that episode, that latter part of the episode where Flame Princess basically breaks off her relationship with Finn, that part I really don't like how that was handled. Oh shoot, Kapinarmic saying bad stuff about Adventure Time. I mean, yeah, there are Adventure Time episodes that I don't like, that I haven't talked about, that I probably will talk about in the future. I believe the main reason why I do not like the ending of that is because it seemed too fast. You know, I understand that Finn was dishonest with Flame Princess and, you know, deceived Flame Princess, but with the circumstances that were present, it really seemed frivolous and kind of dumb to end off their relationship in that episode, because a blunder like that is the type where you would be mad at your significant other, which is obviously understandable, and eventually, hopefully, your significant other apologizes and they will be very genuine about it. And it might take some time to build up that trust with your significant other again, but you will try, and you will eventually get back to that state that you were with them before. And for Adventure Time to just up and say, "Oh, you made a mistake, I'm done," that just seems really careless to do in an episode like that. The consequences that happen don't seem to warrant turmoil to that degree for me. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because this episode of regular show is actually something somewhat similar, where the significant other is like, "Whoa, what is happening here? I don't think I could take all this," and they basically walk off into the lake, or in regular show's case, drives off in a car. And I believe that it's handled much better in this episode than in Frost and Fire, because the circumstances feel like it warrant the emotion given. Oh, sorry, I don't mean the emotion given, but the reaction given. And I just feel like regular show handled that a lot better than Adventure Time did in that regard. So that's just a little side thing that I wanted to bring up. But all in all, like I said, this was a great, fantastic episode, and let me know what you think. If you think this was a horrible episode, that's okay. I'm just one opinion on the internet. But leave your comments down below on what you thought of this episode, because I'm interested to see other views, and maybe I didn't touch on something that you wanted me to touch on, and let me know if you want to see more episode recaps like this in the future. So I'm kapinarmic, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.